ready, man? Party people in the place to be. It's about that time for us to. Yeah.
What's up, chiropractors? This is Dr. 𝘵𝗫𝗄𝗃, your guide up the mountain to $1 million practice. If you're looking for the roadmap to grow your practice fast, then keep on listening. This is the Path to $1 Million podcast, where I chat with today's most successful practicing chiropractors. And remember, if you want to get there faster, visit getmemorenewpatients.com to find out more about Leverage Media, the most comprehensive digital marketing agency for chiropractors on the planet.
What's up, everybody? This is Dr. Nick with Leverage Media. Welcome to another episode of Path to $1 Million podcast. I'm here with a new friend of mine, Dr. Clint Steele. Welcome to the podcast, Doc. And
thank you very much.
I love your name. I feel like you were either meant to be a superhero or a porn star, but you became a chiropractic superhero. You know.
I hear that all the time. I hear porn star a lot. Believe it or not, I hear. Soap opera star. I hear country western star. I have heard of
it. All works. It's just it's a perfect name. It's a perfect name.
Well, thank you.
Well, you might be a villain though with the shaved head.
Yeah, I have a good heart though, man. Come on.
Well, that's good. That's good. All right, so we are going to talk today. You are a 2-star doctor, which means that you exploded through 2 stages of practice: the 0 to 250 mark and the 250 to 500. You just came out of the gates firing. So tell people a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and then we'll get into the path that you took in your practice.
Awesome. Well, I practice in Maine right now. I'm originally from Colorado. I practice in Maine. I graduated in '93 from Logan. Graduated was going to conquer the world through chiropractic, right? What I thought chiropractic was, or what I knew chiropractic is. Unfortunately, when I opened my doors, the public only wanted me to get rid of their neck and low back pain. Sure. And insurance companies, that's what they wanted to pay for. So I had to pay the bill. So I went with it, even though I knew chiropractic was so much more. And so I thought, I'll get them in the door. I'll transition them. I'll get them to the point where they want to come in for the rest of their life and receive the true benefits of chiropractic, right? It never happened. Never happened. I had a PVA of 12, never could go up above 12, meaning people saw me 12 times, never saw me again, right? Bad business model, also bad healthcare model.
Yeah.
17 years later, 7,000 patient files later, I couldn't figure it out. The day before I decided to quit, I still needed more new patients, right? I was on this new patient merry-go-round, which I find so many chiropractors are on. Yeah. And I said, I'm done. I quit. I was never going to practice again. 3 years go by. I went out, set a couple other businesses, performing acts of kindness, which was great, but didn't make any money. I found myself selling 𝘂𝗵𝗵𝗺 vacuum cleaners door to door for about 6 months. And I'm like, I'm done. I'm going to get back into chiropractic, but this time I'm going to do it my way. And so I got back in, went from 0 to 500 patient visits a week in 6 months, 100% cash, starting dead broke, 700 square foot office, no employees. And now 5 years later, I have a PVA well over 100 plus. I have patients that started with me 5 years ago that still come in every week for their regular checkups. If they need adjustments, they get adjustments, and it's my dream practice. And I know a lot of docs are out there that want that kind of practice that don't think it's possible, but it is.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And I'm excited to, and I like that you've gone through kind of the struggles, and it's like 2 standalone practices. So it's not like you started the old one back up. It's like you just started fresh and did it the way you wanted to do it. So I'm excited to share that with everybody. So 12 PVA is probably the average nationwide. I was trying to do some quick math in my head. 17 years and 7,000 files, that's 400 new patients a year. So that's, about 35 new patients a month for 17 years. You didn't have a new patient problem. You had a retention problem.
Here's the deal, Nick, and I think you would agree with this, is I don't think chiropractic has a new patient problem. Most chiropractors don't have a new patient problem. We have a retention problem.
Yeah.
People don't understand the truth of chiropractic, and so they just use us for getting rid of neck and low back pain. It's kind of like, you've heard this before. It's kind of like going to the dentist or just brushing your teeth when you have a cavity. And then after the cavity's filled, you're done brushing your teeth, right? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Because I see a lot of chiropractors. I speak with a lot of them, and they give me their stats on where they're at in practice. and there are some practices that are large that see a very minimal amount of new patients. But again, like they're already doing well. They don't have a new patient problem. They're pretty much referral based and they're fine. When they come to me, they're ready to, really spread their message and start to, add on an associate or whatever. The ones that think they have new patient problems are always the ones that are, they get 12, 15, 20 new patients a month, but they're still only seeing 70, 80, 90 people a week. And they've been in practice for more than 5 years. Like if you're new in practice, if this is your first year and you're getting 15 new patients a month and you're seeing 90 a week, it's like, yeah, you just haven't like gotten enough people in there and gotten enough referrals going. But if you've been in it for 5 years, your PVA should be 20, 30, 50, 100, like depending on like what your systems are like. And the ones that always think they have a new patient problem and think if I can just get more new patients in with that 12 PVA, everything will be fine. And that's a tough ride to be on.
It is, man. I spoke to a doc about 3 weeks ago. He started working with us and doing some different things. He was seeing 90 new patients a month. 90 new patients a month. I'm like, dude, if I had 90 new patients a month, like I would be set after 6 months. I wouldn't have to grow my practice anymore. But the thing is, he was losing them after. He said, I didn't even have a chance to develop a relationship with them because they're gone after 3 or 4 days or 3 or 4 visits, right? Yeah. Because chiropractic is amazing at doing what? Getting rid of neck and low back pain.
Right.
So it's a blessing and a curse at the same time, right?
Yeah. Somebody told me this, that the number one drop-off point in a chiropractic office, and someone who had access to a lot of data, the number one drop-off point was at visit 8. So it's like something was happening, like they didn't come in for visit 8 meeting. So something was happening in that visit 6 to 8 framework where, and again, they were feeling better. Like how long does it take to get someone out of pain? It's like 6 visits, 3 to 6 visits is usually about, and it's like if it's severe, maybe that's why there were people that were staying longer and that's why it bumped up to 8 instead of it being at 6. But you're 100% right that if all you're talking about is pain, it's going to be tough to get it over 12. Because it doesn't seem like communication is your problem. Like we've talked a couple of times, and I don't ever feel like it's because you're a weird person or like you're like scared to talk to people. That's not the case. So like you were the same person back then. Yeah. It's just the message that you were delivering was different.
But, a lot of docs have asked me that, like, what's the difference between your first practice when you had PVA of 12 and the practice now? And so I had to look back. I like turned around and looked and said, okay, these are the things that I didn't do in my first practice that I'm doing now that work. And so it broke down to 7 steps. And the first one, as you just kind of alluded to, was my mindset, right? My certainty on the truth of chiropractic and what true chiropractic is about. Now I graduated obviously from Logan, not a huge, I think you went to Logan, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So not a huge philosophy, school, but at the same time we got some philosophy. We knew the truth of chiropractic. Yep. But it wasn't oozing out of me, right? It wasn't like pouring out of my skin and like, that I had to like let everyone know like people are dying because they're not getting adjusted on a regular basis. And so that's the first thing that I had to do was change the thoughts in my head and produce in I shouldn't say produce, but develop this certainty in the truth of chiropractic. So when I opened back up, like every person I met, you've come across those people, they're obsessed, right? They're obsessed with what they do. It's kind of like, I watched your interview with Gary Vee. Like he's obsessed with the Jets, man. Like, it just being around him because he's always talking about the New York Jets, right? Right. Even though that's not his business, but he's obsessed with it. Same thing happens whenever you come across someone who's obsessed about what they do, they're passionate about what they do, it oozes out of them. They can't help but talk about it, right? Yeah. And so that's what happened to me is I changed my certainty in my head about the truth of chiropractic. And so when I was out talking to people or around people, like it just oozed out of me, right?
Got it. So let's start with this new practice. All right, you're selling Kirby vacuum cleaners. Yep. What was the moment when you're like, I am going back to chiropractic? Like there had to have been like a breaking point. Like you knocked on a door and some woman like screamed at you or something. Like what happened?
it was a grind, number one. But what happened was about 3 things happened to me about the same time. And I had 2 licenses. I had one in Maine, I had one in Colorado. My license in Maine had expired, and I had still had my license in Colorado, but I wasn't practicing there, but it still was good. And so it was October 24th, right? Something like that, 25th.
What year was this?
I couldn't tell you the year, man. 2013, maybe 2014. Maybe it's 2014, maybe 2013. Anyway, what happened was Christmas was right around the corner. I came home one day. I wasn't making very much money selling Kirby vacuum cleaners, and I said to my wife, I said, "What are we gonna do for Christmas for the kids? I mean, combined we have 6 kids. Like, how are we gonna get them Christmas gifts, right?" A few days before that, I got a letter from my grandmother, 90-year-old grandmother, who, Christian woman, basically wrote me this letter, stating what the F, what WTF are you doing with your life? Christian woman. So she's not going to say that, but basically that's what the letter said, right? Mm-hmm. And I was pissed. I was pissed at her, man. I called my mom. I said, I was pissed. And a couple days later, it hit me, she's absolutely right. So that, along with Christmas coming up. And then I kept seeing these video testimonials from a friend of mine that was practicing, of people getting better with things like, sleep apnea and asthma, depression and anxiety. And I called them up around the same time. I said, "Dude, what are you doing?" I said, "You doing acupuncture? You doing nutrition?" He said, "No, I'm just adjusting the spine. That's it. I'm just adjusting the spine." Yeah. And I said, "Okay, I'm getting back in." I went out and visited him for a couple of days. I saw a testimony. I talked to patients that, that tears coming down their eyes because their kids' lives have been changed, because their lives have been changed. And I'm like, I never saw this in 17 years. I only saw neck and low back pain. And so all that stuff combined, and I said, I went back and I told my wife, I said, "We're getting back into chiropractic, but this time I'm doing it my way. I'm not dealing with insurance. I'm going 100% cash." I had no idea where I was going to start this because I had no money. Mm-hmm. I said, we're just going to do it. And so the February the next year, I opened up and just started.
So October 24th to February. So basically,
I got to tell you this real quick.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. October 31st was when my Colorado license was going to expire. Uh-huh. And so I called them up on October 24th, 25th. I said, what do I need to do here to get this? And they said, "You got to send us your credits, everything immediately. And it has to get here by October 31st. And so I did that. I got my license. Luckily, it reciprocated in Maine, which is where I was living. I wanted to practice, and so I got my reciprocation. So
very nice.
Sorry, I forgot that.
No. I'm glad to know the details. So because it's thank God that your grandmother decided to just write a letter about you screwing up your life. So that's good. Yeah. So 4 months later, you've opened up a practice. Did you do anything? And you didn't have to move or anything. You opened up in the place where you lived, right?
Yeah. Now this was about 45 minutes from my previous practice. So I moved to a new town, new city. So it wasn't
starting fresh. So what did you do in those 4 months to prepare? Because I'll talk to kids that are coming out of school, and it's they've got to wait for their license, but they want to start something up, and they end up just kind of sitting and doing nothing because they think they need to have an open door to start promoting. What did you do in those 4 months?
So what I did, I was waiting for my license, obviously, to reciprocate, waiting for Maine to give me that. But I set up, I had to find an office space. That was number one, at a price that I could afford. And then also I continued to sell Kirby's because I had to build up my income. We started saving money. But I went out and I started talking to people about the truth of chiropractic, right? And when I say the truth of chiropractic, I'm talking about sharing the message that the brain controls everything in your entire body through the nervous system. And when it can't communicate properly, it's going to cause health problems. And so once I had an office space, I started asking people to meet me. I wanted to help them with their business, right? And the approach that I took was this, and Gary Vee talked about this in your interview that you did with him. That was a great interview, by the way. Thanks for sharing that. He talked about just going through his phone, right? Just going through his phone and every single person in there, letting them know, hey, I'm going to be opening up back in practice again, but it's not about neck and low back pain. This is what I'm doing. And so I started just sharing that message. I'd go to BNI meetings. I'd go to networking meetings, share the message. And so as soon as I had an office space, I was inviting business owners to my office, and I would tell them, listen, I'm getting ready to open a practice. I want to share with you what I'm doing. I want to learn more about what you're doing, how I might be able to help you as I start seeing more people, the whole bit. And they'd come in for, 2 or 3 minutes, and then they'd share with me what they're doing. And then they'd say, oh, by the way, what are you doing? How are you? What's this new thing that you're doing that's different than what other chiropractors do? And that's what I did, Nick, is I sold myself as, yeah, I'm a chiropractor, but what I do is very different than a lot of other chiropractors, because a lot of other chiropractors were just doing what? Neck and low back pain. And so I knew I had to differentiate myself. I had to pull myself out of that neck and low back pain talk. Yep. And so I brought them in on that. And so I had a tour set up. I talk a lot with the docs in my group about giving tours of the office. And a lot of people like I've got one room, it's 400 square feet. What am I giving a tour about? And it's not about, the bathroom is here and the adjusting room is here and the x-ray room is here. It's not about that. It's about patient testimonials that are setting out there, right? Before and after pictures. It's about pictures of kids, pictures of babies, pictures of adults, of elderly people that are getting better, that are coming in for regular care. It's about your objective findings. What are you using? Before and after. You can see these before and after postural scans. Like, this is part of the tour. People are seeing social proof. They're seeing testimonials of not things with neck and low back pain, but things like, depression and anxiety and asthma and on and on. This is what when people walk in my office, they're like, oh, I had no idea this is what chiropractic was all about. And then that just leads me into, well, that's what I do,
Exactly. I hope that people that listen to this podcast regularly are understanding the common threads that all of these really successful doctors, when they started out, all of you do the same thing. It's all about being able to position yourself differently so that it breaks the pattern that people have in their mind of chiropractic. So I talked to Tony 𝘂𝗿𝗆 about this, and he would always, when he would network with people, he would present himself as a pediatric chiropractor. Yeah. And then that would get them to ask, what is that? Exactly. You position yourself as a brain-based or a neurological chiropractor. Okay, what does that mean? Right? If you just say chiropractor, they just instantly are like, okay, I know what that means, and they move on. I know 7 of those, right? Well, but when you position yourself,
most of them have already been to one, or they're seeing one.
Right, yep. Exactly. But if you position yourself as differently, it strikes up the conversation, and then you can talk about whatever it is that you want to talk about. Real quick, before we get into once you opened, what was it that allowed you, were you already certain in your mind with your philosophy, or in those 4 months leading up to the practice, or while you were selling 𝘀𝗵𝗄, or whenever it was, were you reading the green books? Were you were you listening to On Purpose? What was it that you were doing to increase your certainty?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question. Basically, 4 things. Number 1, I surrounded myself, and I didn't know them personally, but I surrounded myself with them on Facebook, on social media, with docs that had either already built a lifetime wellness-based practice, the type of practice that I wanted, or they were working towards that, right? Totally different energy, totally different thought process, what they talk about. As compared to my previous practice, when I used to go, the only time I was around chiropractors was when I went to the local convention, so I can get my credits, right? And everyone's complaining, they're griping about, Medicare, or the insurance didn't pay, or patients don't get it, and it was all complaining. So totally different energy, number 1. So
isn't it great, real quick, isn't it amazing how you can, because chiropractic, practice gets lonely, especially when you don't have other doctors in the office. It can get lonely. Social media is such a great way now to be able to connect and stay motivated. Who was your favorite person that you followed? Of those people that were building?
Well, Dan Sullivan was one, and that was kind of twofold. Not only was he on purpose about chiropractic and certain about the truth of chiropractic, but he was sharing. Then the second thing that helped me was seeing the studies, man, seeing the research. Because up till that point, I had only seen research on neck and low back pain chiropractic, and now I'm seeing stuff from Dan Sullivan. I'm seeing stuff from Richard Barwell, like stuff like that, 𝗁𝗂𝗍𝗵, and I'm seeing stuff like, holy cow, chiropractic adjustments like actually affect the prefrontal cortex, and they're getting into detail about this, right? Yep. And so that was the second thing that really helped me. Chris Zano was one, by the way, to answer your question. Chris Zano was one, Dan Sullivan, 𝘊𝗿𝗍𝗄𝗿 from AMPed. You know, there was a number of docs, but that's kind of who I surround myself. Patrick Jatempo, On Purpose, those types of things.
Perfect. So, so that's number one. You said you did 4 things to increase your certainty. So what were the other ones?
So surrounding myself, learning the truth in the research, right? Reading the studies, surrounding myself with docs that knew the studies, that could explain them to me, how they related to chiropractic. That was number 2. Number 3 was philosophy. You know, so I started On Purpose, the green books. I got a number of different books that were philosophy-based chiropractic books that I was reading. And then the 4th thing was testimonials. I started, you know, this kind of started with my buddy who was posting testimonials of people that got better just from chiropractic adjustments with things like sleep apnea and asthma and, you know, other things than just neck and low back pain. And so I started searching more and more of those testimonials, which gave me more and more certainty.
So just to kind of put a point on your buddy and what's his name?
That was Mike Viscarelli.
Okay. So Mike, who was doing chiropractic, adjusting the spine, getting great results, didn't keep it to himself. He records the testimonials and he puts them out there, right? Content marketing. What Gary talks about, what I talk about, the way that you should be marketing is telling the truth of what you do, showing, you know, case studies or results. So he puts those testimonials out there. You know, he probably put them out there so that other people with sleep apnea or asthma could see it, and maybe they would come in and maybe it would turn into a new patient, or his community would be a little bit more educated on what chiropractic is, right? But what it did is this one guy with a local office in Maine influenced one other guy who was selling Kirby vacuum cleaners to go back into practice, who now is influencing thousands of lives, right? And by extension, now you're teaching other chiropractors that are also now we're talking about millions of lives that are being affected because of one rock that got thrown into a pond, a ripple happened, another ripple happened, another ripple happened. So it's like, you never know, this interview may change the course of someone's life. If they are struggling, they've been in practice for 7 years, they've got a PVA of 12, everybody leaves at visit 8. They don't know why. They're frustrated. They're thinking about giving up. They've been hearing about these Kirby vacuum cleaners that sell themselves, and this interview might be the thing that turns them into what you've become. And so you never know what, and that's what I tell doctors. I'm like, you guys, everybody just keeps all this information to themselves. It keeps all these chiropractic miracles to themselves, and we allow, you know, the state association or the national association to like be the thing that speaks for us, instead of us at the grassroots level explaining what it is. If you're an MPI, sports-based, movement-based doctor, talk about that stuff, because that will change, like, you have changed someone's life, but you've got to talk about like the human impact of it. So I love hearing stories like this, because you never know who that content is gonna influence. You might influence some kid that was gonna go be an MD to now become a chiropractor who saves the profession one day. You just never know. It's like Linda Hamilton in Terminator. I think that's like a good metaphor. I can't remember all the details of Terminator, but you know, you these like little things, you never know what's going to be the thing that makes the biggest difference.
Yeah.
So
awesome. I love that you said that, Nick. I love that, man, because it makes me upset. It's kind of a pet peeve of me now, because it totally changed the trajectory of my life. And so now what I do is I go out and I interview people, and I do stuff like this here, and I put it out there for docs to share. And so many docs, they don't share. I'm like, why are you not sharing this? Like, every chance you get, docs, we need to be sharing the truth of chiropractic with as many people as we can, as often as we can. That's the only thing that's gonna shift the paradigm.
Right. So I took us off on a path there. Sorry about that. So
that's all right.
You like, then you read, you said all the other 4 things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Because it was the testimonials. That's what it was. That was the fourth thing. All right. So now you have you've launched. Day one, February 2014. You're ready to get after it. Did you have people like lined up that you had signed up from your networking that were like going to be new patients like that first week, or how did it work?
So what I did was I set up an open house for like a week before I opened up.
Okay.
And I just invited everyone that I knew. And I just said, listen, I'm opening up a new business. Love for you to come. And so when they came, obviously, while they were there, I shared the truth of chiropractic. And then obviously I had my appointment calendar there, and I started making appointments. And that's what I find so many docs, they miss out on that. They go and do screenings, they go and do a talk, and they pass out business cards. Like, I don't even think business cards should be made anymore, right? To me, they're useless unless I'm collecting them so I can then turn around and contact them, right? But handing them out, usually they're going to go in the trash. So
Sure.
I take my calendar with me everywhere. I give them an opportunity to make an appointment. Boom, they're in the books. I leave. So that's how I started. I had people in the books the first week, and just went from there.
How many new people came in the first month, if you remember?
I couldn't.
guess.
I didn't keep those stats. What I did though, Nick, and I did keep these stats, and I put this picture up in my chiropractic truth teller group before. Is I set a goal. One of the things about becoming certain about chiropractic, but I also had to become certain about what I wanted for my practice. Yeah. And so I set a goal of 500 patient visits a week in 6 months. And then I developed my plan to be able to get there. Yeah. And so I knew early on, like what I thought my closing rate was going to be. And so I knew I had to meet 600 people over the course of 6 months, 100 people a month, or 100 people a month. Yeah, right. Over 6 months, and invite them to my office for an assessment, right? And so I take pictures of my first like 3 months, and I had people listed on this piece of paper, and I had my son hold me accountable. He was going to college at the time, and I'd send him a picture. I said, I'm going to send you a picture every month of 100 people on this list, and I don't care if you do whatever you want with it, but I had an accountability partner, right? And so every month, and it only lasted about 3 months, I had to meet 100 people, invite them to my office, and I kept track. Green line was, yeah, they came and they accepted care. Red line was, no, they didn't come. Yellow line was, yeah, we're going to think about it maybe, which I hated maybes. But by the third month, like the momentum was so great that I didn't even have to meet people anymore. People were coming to me, right, through referrals and
3 months.
Through things
like 3
that.
months.
3 months, yep.
3 months, and you met 100 people, which is not a lot of people. Right,
no,
each month.
It wasn't.
Like, it's not like that's, you have to go out and meet, 3 people a day, right? And I'm sure you went to events where they had 20 people, and you got you got to knock off 20 of those. But it's like, if you don't have KPIs like that, if you don't have numbers that you're trying to hit, it's just going to be like, oh, you should meet a lot of people. Okay, well, what's a lot of people? Like, it's just like working out. If you don't measure your reps or what you're lifting or what you weigh or measure what food you're eating, you're just not going to be successful over time. And when at least with me, just because my brain gets analytical, is I start to make a game out of things when I'm measuring them. And so if I had to meet 100 people in a month, I'd be like, all right, last month I met 100 people by the 22nd. Can I do the 21st this month? Then you start pushing yourself, Absolutely. So by month 3, when you say that there was enough momentum, you mean that there were enough people coming in and referring new people in to where you were on the path to the 500 visits a week?
Yeah, basically what happened was at the end of 3 months, I was getting so many referrals coming in the door. And by then I was starting to host events, which brought in more people in the door that I didn't have to actually go outside of my office to meet these people. They were coming to me. Yeah. Very
nice. So how long did it take you to get to the 500 visits a week?
I hit it in 6 months.
6 months. Nice. Like right on the dot, or like 5 months or 4.5 months?
I think it was a little bit before 6 months. I remember going home to my wife and I took a picture of it. And to this day, I'm kind of embarrassed by it, but I keep my calendar handwritten. I have no employees in the office. And so I keep my handwritten calendar. I text people for appointments. I'm like old fashioned that way, right? Yeah. Anyway, I took a picture of it and I took it home to my wife, and I'm like, we're we're going out to celebrate. So it was a good day. Good day.
That's awesome. You still have no patient or no employees?
No employees, yeah.
Oh,
Well, not in the office. I don't have any employees in the office. My wife handles like some events. She handles some of our social media stuff, stuff like that. But I don't have a CA in the office or anything. No. That's
unbelievable. I'm gonna clip this out and play it for my staff when they can't handle the volume. That's unbelievable, man. I've never even heard of that before. 500 visits with no staff. That's got to be some kind of record. All right, so you've made the 6 months. So just for the 0 to 250, how long did it take before you were collecting the 20,000 a month to be on pace for 250?
It didn't. I didn't write that. I mean, if I pulled up my stuff, I'd be able to figure it out. It was probably 3 months, maybe.
Yeah, and then to get to the 40,000, that was probably in those 6 months.
Yeah, I think I hit that at around. Yeah, it wasn't that far after 6 months. It was maybe month 7th or month 8.
Yeah.
But once you get to a certain point, like it just starts to snowball, man. Like, like it's like, holy cow! I remember going from 1 month to the next. I'm like, I gotta look at those numbers again, man. Like, is this legit? Like, is this real? Like that much of a jump, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, as soon as you start doing it, man, and you develop, you got to have the right systems in place and the right procedures, but man, it really starts to snowball.
Yeah. So you're still kind of, you've kind of settled into that 500 a week mark, and that's kind of where you've stayed to this point, right?
Yeah, like I said, we talked about this before we started the interview. I've pretty much stopped accepting new patients. I've actually dropped. 500 was a bit much for me. Believe it or not, I'm an introvert. And so at the end of the day, after seeing 500, some days I'd see 170, 175 in a day. I'd go home and I was drained. I was like totally drained. And so I've cut back. I'm down to probably like 350, 400 now. But yeah, it was too much for me.
So what is standpoint. Kind of explain to me, I'd imagine you do a day 1, day 2. When they sign up for, like, do you have like a kind of a standard care plan? Kind of walk me through that. Like, what does that look like when you present it to the patient? What's your acceptance rate on care plans?
So right now, my acceptance, well, I'm not accepting new patients, but close to the end, it took me, Nick, it took me about 3 years to get to this point. But once I was basically almost all referrals and people that have come to my events, a 97% acceptance rate. And I started off with a year-long care plan, and I was doing great with it. And then I had an associate come in that couldn't sell a year-long care plan to save his life. And so I had to drop, his mentality wasn't there, right? His certainty wasn't there. So we had to drop it down to 6-month care plan for him to start selling. So now I started, probably the last 2.5 years, it's been 6-month care plan.
Let's talk about that 0 to 500, those first 6 months. What were you doing then?
I was doing year-long care plans.
Year-long. And how much was a year-long care plan?
Back then, it was probably right around $3,000, maybe a little less than $3,000. So one of the things is I'm 100% cash, so and I have a low overhead, and I would use that as a selling point. Right? So when people come in, they say, "Well, do you accept insurance?" And my deal was, well, let's get you in. Yeah, insurance does pay for chiropractic, but in my office, I'm part of and I would call it a federal discount plan. I was part of the program that allowed me to legally discount, for cash. And so I would, I lost the question, man. What was the question again?
I was asking what the cost of the care plan was for your.
Yeah. So my costs were fairly low. As compared to some care plans that, for a year long, that's some docs are probably falling off their chair saying, holy cow, how'd you do that for a year-long care plan? But, overhead super low. So
yeah,
you can do it.
But you also got to, everybody's different. Like everybody's situation is different. Everybody's end goal is different. Like if you want to be a PI office and have $120 average collected visit, it's going to be very different than somebody who's cash only, talking about neurological stuff, trying to get those chiropractic miracles. Like those just don't happen in 6 visits, So
absolutely.
Before I forget this though, because I thought of this as you were talking a little bit earlier. Do you have that letter from your grandmother up in your office?
I have it still. It's still in the envelope. Yeah, I should.
Dude, you gotta get that. You have to get that up. That has to be part of the story.
You know what? That's a good point. I probably should get that out and frame it. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, not probably. You should do that today. Like if you're framing Mary Jones back there in her posture, you should be framing your grandmother's letter that changed your life.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, so we talked about getting to that 500 level. What was your conversion rate then when you like those first 6 months?
I started and I tracked this. I think the first month I had an acceptance rate of like 33%. Mm-hmm. And I remember I was listening to I can't remember if it was Zig Ziglar or Jim Rohn, but someone said when you're just starting out and your acceptance rate or your sales rate is low, you just got to meet more people, right? Mm-hmm. Until you can get that up to the point where then, obviously when I have a 97% acceptance rate, for a minimum 6-month care plan or a year-long care plan back then, obviously I didn't have to meet as many people. So, so back then, yeah, it was low and I had to work on it. And so, on that day 2, you're talking about report of findings, like in order for someone to pay cash for a year-long care plan, I had to build a lot of value, right? Yeah. Not only in what I do as a chiropractor, how I'm different than, the 3 guys down the road, but also in their need for chiropractic and building their want for what I was offering. Because, and I talk about this all the time, is people will pay for what they want and give up what they actually need. And I learned that selling Kirby vacuum cleaners. I would walk into a place where I'm like they have one piece of carpet here. They're not buying this thing, right? But I would build up the value so much that they would put it on a credit card, and I knew probably they couldn't even afford their electricity, but they were putting a Kirby $2,000 Kirby vacuum cleaner, by the way, on their credit card so they could have this, right? And in order to do that, I had to build up so much value that they said, I want this, right? Yeah.
You should also put the Kirby vacuum cleaner underneath the letter from your grandmother. I just thought about that too.
Yeah.
All right. So that's a lot of really good value. So now you're just coasting, seeing 400 a week, doing great. Now it seems like your mission is really to start to give back to the profession and try to help people go through that transition that you went through. So there's a couple things that I want to talk about. I want to talk about wine, women, and wellness. I think I got that at the right order, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I want to talk about chiropractic truth tellers. And I feel like there's one other thing. But let's talk about the wine, women, and wellness. What were you going to say?
Oh, TRUCHIRO.
TRUCHIRO.
That's our company. But
talk to me about the wine, women, and wellness. So you guys are doing those in your practice, and just kind of walk me through. I was on a webinar where you went through, and I was just, I have a part ownership in a bridal expo company. So it was after my heart of running these events for women that when I heard you go through it, I'm just like, that's it. That's the way to do it.
It's a no-brainer. The thing is, my previous practice, again, I was talking about the 7 steps, and one of the steps that I didn't do in my previous practice that I do now is I run events. I host events. And before I never thought, I don't need to run events. I'm a chiropractor. I'm a doctor. People are just going to listen to me. They're just going to come to me. Well, they don't. Okay. So you host events, not only for your current practice members to hear the truth of chiropractic again and again and again and again, because we have people come to the Wine, Women, and Wellness events. We've been hosting them for 5 years, twice a year, 10 times. And we have people that have been to them every single time, right? Which I love because they hear the truth of chiropractic again, right? Shifting that paradigm. But
they can bring somebody new every time too.
Well, this is the thing. Like, why not provide your patients with an opportunity to bring their friends and family to an event that's casual, that they're going to enjoy, that's outside of your practice, that they can meet you and they can hear the truth of chiropractic.
Right.
And so docs ask me, how do you have a 97% acceptance rate? They call BS on me, right? No, that's how I do it, is because people who already know, like, and trust me, people who are already doing business with me are bringing their friends and family members to meet me. And so, boom, there's already a know, like, and trust factor, right? And so, yeah, that's why we have 97% acceptance rate. And by the way, 37% of those people pay in full. So as compared to someone who walks off the street that has never met me, hasn't seen any of my Facebook lives, doesn't know anything about me, right? What are the chances they're going to accept care? Number one, what are the chances they're going to pay in full for a year-long care plan of someone they just met, right? It doesn't happen, rarely. Right. So we started promoting events. And so we did dinners with the doc, and we also started doing this thing called Wine, Women, and Wellness. And my wife does an amazing job at handling this. She loves wine. And so she says, you know, I love to hang out with my girlfriends. We love to drink wine. Why don't we set up an event where we can bring these women to an event? They can meet health vendors, right? And be able to mingle, enjoy some hors d'oeuvres, enjoy some wine, hang out with their girlfriends, and then hear the truth of chiropractic. Yeah. It is like a win-win for everybody, right?
Yep.
And so we started doing these things. And the first one I did, I think I had like maybe 40 women there, maybe 10 guests. And I don't remember how many accepted care, how many made appointments and accepted care, but it just grew. It just grew and grew and grew. So the point where our last one, we had over 100 women there. I think we had like 40 or 50 women that weren't current practice members. And we had 100% of those guests made appointments. And not only did they make appointments, but they accepted care for a six-month care plan.
Not bad. Not bad.
And so what we did, we started training docs how to set this up. And we don't have to train the doc. We can train their CA or their team member to do it. So week by week training, it usually starts about 10 to 12 weeks out. And every week there's certain tasks that you need to do. And so we train people how to do that. And then what we did, we own the trademark on that as well, Wine, Women, and Wellness. And so we developed a website where people can go in and input their information, their event information. They can put, it's basically like their own private website in this area that they can put, their information. They can do invites. They can collect the information, which is huge. Registration information, the whole thing.
I love it. Yeah, when I watched the webinar, I was just like, man, you've thought of everything on this. Like, there wasn't anything where I'm just like, oh, he's missing that part of it. Because I mean, because we used to do really large women expos. We stopped doing those and we just do the bridal shows now. But like we do them, in convention centers with, 80 to 100 vendors. And so we've thought of everything at this point of what you should do in an event. And I was kind of like with my discerning eye, I'm like, oh, he's not gonna check all the boxes. And then you did. And I was like, and it's if you don't know anything about like how to do this, the way that you guys have it set up, it's like you just give them the roadmap and all they have to do is just physically do the things. But your wife, runs the training. You guys have done it 10 times, so you've worked out all the kinks. I'm just a big believer in I always talk about this, but my two number one core values are freedom and information. And my third one is abundance. So like I'm willing to trade my abundance for information that will let me hit the fast forward button or will give me more freedom. So I'll hire people to like do the thing that needs to be done, or I'll pay for somebody who's already done it, because the amount of time that it took me to figure out all the stuff that you now have in this package for chiropractors, you don't want to know how long that took. I mean, I probably lost hundreds of thousands of dollars on my chiropractic practice because I spent so much time trying to figure out how to run bridal expos from the ground up in a time where I should have been worried about growing my chiropractic practice.
I love that you said that, man. That's totally on point. I totally agree. And that's one of my things that I've had problems with is I don't want to pay for more information, but now I've gotten to the point now where it's like, it's a no-brainer, right? Yeah. Because, and one of the things that I thought you were going to lead to, Nick,
information with execution.
Yeah, but it's going to lead to what? You were talking about abundance as well, but you're paying for information that's going to lead to what? More freedom and more abundance.
Exactly, right. Right.
Yeah, so it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I just love the approach. And so give them the website that they can go to find out more about like the training.
Yeah, they can go to winewomenandwellnesstraining.com. Winewomenandwellnesstraining.com. You spell the word and. Spell the word and.
Wine, Women, and Wellness. I just want to make sure that we get that into the show notes so that people can click on that. All right, so that's a no-brainer. Everybody should be doing that twice a year. In terms of the chiropractic truth tellers, that's a new group that you started on Facebook. Talk a little bit about that on what the benefits of that are.
Yeah, what I did was, going back to surrounding yourself with docs that, in my own mission was to surround myself with docs that had a lifetime wellness-based practice or were moving towards that because the energy was different, the talk was different, the whole thing. I said, I want a group like this. I want a group that is sharing the truth of chiropractic with their following, or they want to, and they're in a position where they haven't figured it out, so that other docs like myself, other docs that have lifetime wellness-based practices can turn around and say, Doc, you got to do this, you got to do that. Here's the instruction, and like let's move, let's change this. And so we started that, I think February. So I think we're almost up to 1,000 members. You can find us on Chiropractic Truth Tellers. We share a ton of value in there. We're getting ready to start some really cool interviews with docs. We got 𝗊𝗵𝗆𝗿 coming in there. We got Monica Berger coming in there talking about brain-based chiropractic. We got Richard Barwell in there. We've got a number of docs that are going to help lead, especially these younger docs or these struggling docs, on how to reach more people with the truth of chiropractic.
That's awesome. Hopefully 𝘂𝗵𝗆𝗿𝗆 will get in there too.
Are you not in there?
No, I'm a member. I'm just saying, hopefully I'll get to present as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. Dude, and also we're bringing in guys like 𝘂𝗵𝗆𝗿𝗆 that are gonna help docs help get their message out to more and more people. How's that?
I'm just gonna clip out the part where I asked for it, and I'll just I'll be right there with Heidi and Barnwell and all that. So that'll be good.
All right.
And then there's TRUCHIRO. Talk a little bit about that and how you help.
TRUCHIRO is just our business name and our company that helps docs reach more people with the truth. So what happened was when I started sharing the truth with people, they would regularly come into me and say, I had no idea this is what chiropractic was all about, number one. Number two, they would say, I've got a sister in Georgia, or I got a brother in Chicago that, needs to see a chiropractor like you that does this truth stuff, right? They would say. And so my wife would try to find chiropractors like that, and they would search social media and whatever, and they were all promoting pain and neck pain and low back pain, and so it was hard. You see it in these private groups. You see, hey, I'm looking for a chiropractor, or in such and such a place. So we started off with a searchable database. It's absolutely free. You can get in if you practice the truth of chiropractic, and you get into the searchable database. And then what we do on top of that, then is we go out and we educate the public about the truth of chiropractic, send them to this website. So if they're looking for a true chiropractor, they can search and see if there's one near them. If not, we help them find one. Mm-hmm. And then that turned into, programs like Wine, Women, and Wellness Training. We've got a 6-week intensive program where I go through the 7 steps. We've got a program where we help educate doctors, patients through emails and texts and social media, which I know you do that too, get into your territory. But, there's just all kinds of services and value that we provide docs in there as well. We're getting ready to start a program called the TRUCHIRO Fit Lifestyle, where we're going to help docs attract people, through exercise and through meal planning, things like that, attract them to their office. We're going to offer them an opportunity to make additional revenue through this program by providing home-based exercise programs, 30-minute workouts 3 times a week. It varies. It changes every single workout. We got meal plans for them, whether they're paleo, whether they're whole food, plant-based, they're just clean eating. We're basically working on the 3 T's, right? We're working on their thoughts. And so this is a program that we're going to be offering docs to be able to provide to their not only to their patients, but to community, right? To their community, where people may want to do business with them, but they've never walked into their office, but it allows this contact for them. They're getting healthy. Now they want chiropractic because we're promoting chiropractic throughout this whole thing. And it's just a win-win again.
That's awesome, man. And it's true with no E. So it's TRUCHIRO.com.
TRUCHIRO.com, yep. .org. It's TRUCHIRO.org. TRUCHIRO.org.
Nice. Well, man, that stint selling $2,000 vacuum cleaners to people with no money really showed you how to build value for people. You got all kinds of stuff going on. It's nice.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. That was one of those things where, you know, when I was doing it, I'm like, this sucks. I don't want to do this ever again. But I look back on it, I'm like, wow, like, so I learned so much in that, you know, 4 or 5, 6 months, whatever it was, doing that.
I am a true believer that if you're going to run a business, that you should do some type of selling and retail. When I was in grad school and then chiropractic school, I sold women's shoes at 𝘂𝗵𝗄𝗆, which ended up getting bought by Macy's. But when I moved to St. Louis for Logan, I was the #1 women's shoe salesperson, like sales per hour in the entire country of 𝘂𝗵𝗄𝗆. And the things that I learned from that, I should do an episode on that, where it's like the lessons that I learned from selling women's shoes, because a lot of what I learned helped me in practice, helped me with leverage, helped me with any other businesses that I'm working on. And I think that like selling things to the general public always helps. So I like for these podcasts, I want the listener to get like one thing that they can really take hold, but I feel like we gave them a ton of things that they can grab onto. So instead, I want to get one thing out of you from this podcast. Can I be your accountability partner on something?
Okay.
All right. By next Saturday, because I don't know how long it takes to get a Kirby vacuum cleaner, but by next Saturday, so like 9 days from now, I want the letter from your grandma framed above a Kirby vacuum cleaner in your practice as part of your tour.
Okay.
Is that enough time to get a Kirby vacuum cleaner?
Part of my tour?
Yes. That is such a good story. Like you were a lost soul, and your grandmother like turned you around.
It's a story I like to share with other chiropractors, though. It's not a story I like to share with my patients.
How? Like what? They would love that.
Man, I don't know. I'm gonna have to think about that.
Like you were lost. Okay, I'm not gonna force you to do it, but I am telling you that is a story that people would resonate with. Like you were lost in the desert. Your grandma, out of the blue, sends you a letter. You were selling Kirby vacuum cleaners, which was just weird, and now you're just like the most successful guy in Maine.
I'm gonna look at that letter again. I haven't pulled it out in a while, but I'll see what it says, because it was kind of embarrassing to me at the time, and I'll see how I feel about that. I may put that up. Yeah. Gary V would be very proud of you. Listen, man, I want to thank you, man. You're doing some great stuff. When I heard about what you were doing with this podcast, and I'm like, this is genius. Like, I think this is genius, man, because chiropractors are at different levels. And like I told you before we started this recording, you know, I may be I never reached $1 million in practice, and my goal is not that anymore. I don't know that it ever was, but I got to 500 patient visits a week, and whatever my income was at that point, and I never really got past that because I didn't know how to. I went through a couple associates, and so I would have loved you like 3 years ago to hear the docs that were doing 500 to $1 million or 750 to $1 million, something like that, and then over $1 million. But I think what you're doing, Nick, is awesome, man. I loved your interview with Tabor. I loved your interview with Gary V. And I just wanted to give you a shout out, man. And I look forward to having you in the Truth Teller group. And I'm getting ready to start a podcast. We talked about this, a 2 minute to better chiropractic podcast, where I'm going to fit people like you in that can just throw in a nugget, man, like a minute, just boom, here it is, take it and run with it. Right. So I want to have you on that podcast as well, man.
I love it, man. Because I'm a big believer in, give people what they want. And when you posted that on social that you were doing that, you've got a bunch of people that were just like, yeah, I'm too busy to listen to Nick rant and rave for 50 minutes with, all of his friends in chiropractic. But some people love like long form like that, but other people just want, like, I listen to a daily podcast on marketing that's like a 5-minute thing, and I listen to it every day because it's just a quick little thing, and they give like one little piece of advice, and I love it. So I love that there's more content being created now for chiropractors in all different forms: video, audio, text, short form, long form. And so I love that you're adding to that mix. You're going to find the people that are looking for that, because there's people that like long form interviews like this, but then also like the same person might just be like, yeah, I just like those nice little nuggets that I can listen to all the time. Yeah. And they could catch up on like 20 episodes if they haven't like logged into their podcast. Like it'd be tough to listen to 20 of these interviews back to back to back. You know what I mean? But I really appreciate you giving so much value. What's the podcast going to be called?
2 Minutes to Better Chiropractic.
Perfect. Okay. So when's that going to launch, you think?
I've got 50 million things in the fire right now, so I got to get a couple things out of the way here. Yeah. I'm for sure by the start of the year, but probably before that.
All right, cool. So winewomenandwellnesstraining.com, TRUCHIRO, no E in true.org, Chiropractic Truth Tellers, Facebook group online, and then watch out for the 2 minute podcast. Clint, I really appreciate all the value you dropped today. I think you're going to really help people that I see all the time that are kind of stuck at a level that they're not happy with. And I think the secret is not more new patients, it's more certainty. And man, I love that you're so on purpose and you're helping so many people in your area. And anything else you want to add to that before we sign off?
I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate your audience. I appreciate chiropractic because it's totally changed my life. And just look forward to serving more and more docs.
Awesome, man. All right, guys, we'll see you on the next episode. Have a good week.
Just because this episode is over doesn't mean you can't continue your path to $1 million practice. We've created chiropractic's most full-service marketing agency at Leverage Media to help you reach $1 million a year fast and continue to grow. You can get a free strategy session with me absolutely free right now. To get started, go to getmemorenewpatients.com. Once again, go to getmemorenewpatients.com, and we'll see you tomorrow on the Path to $1 Million podcast.